Hello and welcome to Do the Right Thing, your weekly writing prompt podcast. I'm Matthias.
And I'm Jarvis.
Jarvis and I are aspiring writers, which for me, that means getting sick every week and then putting off writing till the last minute.
Exactly. So we're both doing a challenge. Each week we sit down for 30 minutes. Our goal is to write a complete short story using 3 of 4 randomly generated words.
Then we come on the podcast, we read out the stories, we talk about what we learned in writing them, and then we talk about stories submitted by you listeners.
We're just simply here to help you do the right thing. A Doof Media production.
A Doof Media production.
Exactly.
Booyah! We got this.
Name branded.
It's great. I'm still sick.
Yes, which is
more or
strange
less.
because you were sick, and then you weren't sick for 1 week. And then you got sick.
Yes, I was cured for a week.
Yeah.
And then I got sick again, and now I still have the cough. It was funny. Last week we recorded.
Yeah.
Literally the next day, my voice was gone.
Oh man,
it was destroyed the next day. Like I was croaking.
Jesus.
And so we recorded at exactly the right time to avoid that. And now my voice is like mostly back to normal, but it's at this point where like I don't actually remember what my normal voice sounds like. So I don't know anymore.
So like, have the doctors even told you anything about what it could be?
No, they don't. No, I suggested things, and they were like, nah, probably not. And I was like, okay, well,
Matthias,
I guess I'll just keep taking my antibiotics.
You might have coronavirus, whatever it's called.
Yeah, coronavirus.
Yeah. Have you been to China recently?
No, but for the record, you only have to worry if it's it's a one specific province. It's like Wuhan or something like that. Wunong.
Oh, so
it's Wu and then Ong.
So it's only coming from one
think.
province. It's not like all over China.
Wuhan. Yeah, basically, it's not all of China. No.
All right. Well, just make sure not to order anything from wish.com for some time, and hopefully you get better.
Okay. China's a big country. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, it's
anyway,
one of the largest.
Yeah. But on our end, there's always these cool doof things. After we, go through the main course of the podcast, we'll give I was gonna say we'll give a short update on the Doof the Right Thing contest, but there's not that much to update. Other than that, it's over.
Yeah.
Congratulations. We got a whole I think was it 24 submissions,
That's
something
amazing.
like that.
Yeah. Thank you honestly to everyone who did submit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically almost every single one of the more most often writers here and stuff like that. Yeah. And if you didn't participate, that's okay. There's gonna be another one in about 3 months if everything goes right. Yeah, quarterly, right? That's how it's supposed to go. So pretty soon we'll announce how the voting process will go for patrons, and then pretty soon after that we'll have our results, and that's it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah,
I can't wait to find out.
We'll have a whole podcast dedicated to reading through the stories, talking about them, and having a gay old time. So
yeah, I'm not entirely sure how we'll handle that. I mean, I think what we might do is to just replace Jarvis and I's stories with that, and we'll keep all the rest, so we'll still have the community shout-out parts and stuff like that.
Exactly. And, we'll have the community shout-out for that week, even though for that episode, would we still have, like, the 4 words? Like, would we just combine...
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay.
I think we should have the 4 words, just to keep it up, because I know that some people... are doing it just for the words, not necessarily for us, which is very valid.
Yeah.
So
hey, I'm fine with being second fiddle. Don't worry.
Okay, sure. There was also an amazing Doof and Chill this past Friday that neither Jarvis and I were able to participate, but it seemed super super fun. The gang played AI Dungeon, and basically the AI spit out description after they gave it prompts, as if they were in a text adventure game, except they could do anything. There was a good section towards the middle where they were on a quest to find a cup, and the game just refused to give them a cup. And it seemed like a really great time, and I wish I had been able to participate.
Nice. Question. Where could either me or the other listeners right now go and see that?
Basically, so it is locked to the Doof Dancer Patreon level or above. That's a $5 level or above. So obviously you and I, Jarvis, we have access to this. It would be in the Doof and Chill Discord channel on the patron Discord. But anyone who's donating at $5 or above is able to access that, and I very highly recommend it.
All right, cool. So if you want a good time, go ahead and go and check that out.
Hell yeah! All right, let's actually get into the meat of the podcast.
Yeah,
I want to say I'm thoroughly pleased and surprised by the amount of stories this week.
We got a lot. Like a lot.
Yeah, which is a very healthy infusion, and it was a whole 70 comments, and it was a little frightening going there. But I was very pleased to see that there was a lot of comments under people's stories. Not every single story, but a lot of them, and that was super awesome.
Yeah, so we're all taking steps in the right direction to try our best to give feedback to someone else's story, because I know the people that are listening and the people that are writing probably would also want feedback too.
Yeah. Actually, I've been thinking of, and I talked to a patron about this, and they helped suggest it. But at the end of the story section, in addition to thanking everyone who wrote, we should probably thank everyone who left comments, because I think those people need extra recognition.
Yeah, and a little bit of boost to them, because I mean, hey, it is extra effort. So.
Yeah, and it's good for you.
Yeah, like broccoli.
But all right, so like broccoli, except it's tasty.
All right, so
like chocolate. Chocolate's good for you, and it's tasty.
Is it good for you though? Like milk chocolate? Or
let's jump into the words. What were the words this week, Travis?
The words for this week were rely, powering, inflect, and word.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which ones did you use?
So for this week's story, I used rely, I used word, and I used towering. My bad.
Okay.
And yeah,
hey, how did it go for you?
For this week, it was pretty solid. I was working on like 3 different things for this week. So I had one idea, I had a second idea. The first idea was actually to do a sequel to the story that I wrote last week. But that honestly didn't really end up happening because this week has been pretty busy. And I feel that if I want to do any sort of continuation, I want to give it proper time.
Okay.
So yeah, this week was just more off the cuff. I just sat down and started writing. And yeah, I enjoy my story, and I'm glad that I wrote it, and can't wait to see what other people say about it. But Matthias,
hell yeah, how
did it go for you this week?
Well, it was last minute, while sleep deprived, and not my best work, but that's fine. I think it's still going to be an entertaining read, but it was like, yeah, I've definitely tried harder before, and so basically, it's just I'm still adjusting to the college lifestyle. So again,
honestly,
after 1 month break, destroyed any semblance of schedule. And pattern.
Also, we're like 3 years deep. We are pretty jaded.
That's one way to phrase it for sure.
Well, all right.
Without further ado, let's jump into your story, Jarvis.
See, Matthias, me and you are linked right now.
Mm-hmm.
If this was Pacific Rim, I would say we were drift compatible.
Oh, shit.
Alright, so, my name is Jarvis Lister, and the title of this story is Square. My boss told me I wasn't ambitious, that when she asked for people to take on more shifts and attend training meetings, I was the only one who wasn't reliable enough to depend on. Now, she wasn't wrong at all. I clock in and do my time. No more, no less. As much effort I can safely put into food services without overtly wasting my time. That's why she told me I've been cashier for the last year and a half. Because every time my replacement is a few seconds late, I'd say something to the effect of, must have slept in. And she takes it every time as some sort of backwards insult. In every way, I respect her observations. But I don't like how she made me out to be some sort of villain on the team. She wrote me up for it, as a warning, but mostly because she obviously didn't how little I put in and how much she took out. Mind you, I didn't tell her to make a career at a campus coffee shop. Sorry if this is just a stop for me, Cynthia. Now I'm doing the same thing, blaming one person for all the discomfort and scandal around work. Just childish. Work is filled with a bunch of gossip Gabes and back-talking Beckys, who act like we're back in high school. As soon as someone rounds a corner, Beck has something to say to her gay best friend, Josh, in secret. And for the rest of the shift, he'll hop around the cafe spilling the tea to anyone with an open ear, even if the one they're talking shit about did them no harm. I just wish I didn't dread clocking in. But there are more important things outside of work, like today, for instance. I woke up when I wanted. Not a soul or sound in the house. By design, I slept till 10. The working man in the house clocked in a little over an hour ago, and the girls are dozing through lectures. So, it was time for me to be productive. And with nothing but time, nothing but goals, I had no excuse not to. A little bit ago, the antique shop downtown switched hands, overnight. The elegant and gaudy ballroom foyer of Macy's bookshelf was liquidated and bulldozed to make way for mile-high bookshelves, viewing cases older than its contents, and a shockingly abundance of cobwebs. The man who owned the shop looked like a carnival barker on his off day, still with all the colors and suspenders and cane, just not as showy. When I was checking out, he told me, in his lowest voice, the only way to success is discipline, not the usage or hope of the word, but its practice. It was prophetic. I knew that I was a piggy boy who lived in the waste of midnight snacks and not so dirty underwear. I knew that somehow I needed to hear some phrase from an older and wiser person who spoke of it as an omen instead of a blessing. So I toiled over my room, washed upwards of 7 loads of clothes and still shoved half of them in the corner of my closet. By the time my 9-to-5 roommate broke for lunch, the dirt patch I laid my head in resembled a brand new room, slightly furnished and little lived in. Then I went to my closet and put aside old textbooks and dust mites to lay my hands on my latest obsession. When I bought it, my mind was filled with designs and lifestyles surrounded around books just like it. The cover was cold stone, chiselings of weary faces and ruinistic symbols along the spine. The fatal edges of its pages were wrapped in golden bronze. Chipped and stained by age, the glisten from the pages still hurt my eyes with a golden light Smeagol would betray for. The man in the shop told me it was a tome, one that he came across when he lived in Scandinavia. In his telling of how he procured it, he made himself out to be an Indiana Jones. Said he saved a small colony of miners from a false prophet that spoke over the book to instill horror and obedience to those who listened. The book was $15 and came with the contingency that I not speak the words over black candles before sundown. I couldn't find black candles. Apparently, every culture has some doom and gloom superstition about burning a few dark candles. But, thankfully Glade has this mahogany pinewood candle that's pretty black. Black enough, at least. So I placed 6 along the side of my desk, set the tome in the middle, and threw sage in the air for effect. I didn't know what to expect. Grew up in church only to stop believing in it years later. All I did know was that the people who prayed over it and feared this book believed in its power enough to wrap their lives around it. The cover slid open with a hiss, the stone slab indenting my desk on impact. The first page was blank, along with the second and third. Only until the fourth had I thought I was duped by the man in the shop. But on page 4, in deep black and blotchy handwriting, was a phrase plastered slightly off-center across the page. Auf Dug og Ask. No translation was provided,
but that didn't turn me off. The book was filled with tales and stories of the pilgrimage of the Decaying people, a civilization of cultists who worshipped a box. I'm not sure. The only thing I was actually able to understand being the black paintings spaced evenly on the 10th page throughout the book. Each chapter, the Decayans would pray over a different deity to deliver them from tribulation. When they found themselves in a well filled with water, a forgotten king wanted them dead. They prayed to Lortzal, a shapeless mist that lifted them out of the well and carpet-bombed Pompeii. Throughout the passages, I could make out the title of each chapter spread throughout it. Like in a prayer, when you say Amen, the deity's name would begin and end each prayer / request / wish. The book wasn't specific if these miracles happen when one is focused on self or the whole. A few chapters in, and the Decaying people have reached a paradise. A little hole in the side of a mountain provided them with everything cults need. So, for the chapter, they all prayed to Rigshav, a wish-granter god who makes your wildest dreams come true as long as you devote one favor of any caliber to him. From what the pictures told me, one of the Decaying people wished for the yield to triple in size, shape, and quantity. As simple as a word, and the wish came true. A month later, the wishmaker wrote this tome through and through, called it Square. As the sun started to hide behind far-off buildings, my joking skepticism converted into a curiosity. That night, some towering presence in my room spoke to me. I clocked in early today, excited. No more than a foot in, and my boss called me to the back. I'm not joking when I said she cried and apologized. It was weird. She just didn't seem herself beyond the obvious. But after she said she was profusely sorry for actively conspiring against me, I accepted it and expected to move on. But then she told me to take the day off and even gave me a gift card. What food service employee wouldn't take that offer? The following week was in the same vein. Beck and Josh, two random people, would come up to me and spill their guts, thanking me for being me and giving me more and more expensive gifts, each one a little more off than the next. The following week, I lost 80 pounds and it developed arthritis. It said a drastic change must happen before the deal is square, and that the only way to success is discipline, not the usage or hope of the word, but its practice.
Fantastic story, Jarvis. I really, really like this. You've written this a little bit Lovecraftian, a little bit this Faustian deal going down as this like kind of mediocre, the average guy, goes through and tries to get their shortcut out. I have to ask before we continue, how much of this is based on a true story, Jarvis?
Okay, so I knew this question was coming, and I can assure you that my boss at work, since if the audience doesn't know, I work at Starbucks, which is a campus coffee shop.
Local campus coffee shop, little known, local.
Yeah, no one really knows about it.
Yeah,
but no, my bosses are very nice to me. They are not mean. There is a lot of gossip when it comes to working at Starbucks, but I also love gossip, so I don't really mind it. But no, I just used it as a common place in my own mind, because there has been a time, yes, where my boss did tell me that I wasn't too ambitious when it comes to working at Starbucks.
Oh, which, no.
Of course, is well, I don't want to be ambitious. I don't want to be here for any longer than I really have to. But you can't tell them that. They're your boss. So, yeah, I guess the loose as loose as possible. This is based off of a part of what I've gone through, I guess.
Okay. So just the explanation.
I also own a tome too. So
yeah, I mean, yes, natural. I've seen that. So that was kind of went without saying. So you did take that Faustian deal there.
Yes, and then I lost 80 pounds, and now I have arthritis in both of my knees and hands.
Ow! Was it worth it?
I mean, I got like a Saltgrass gift card, so that was pretty good.
Sounds excellent. But yeah, okay. So going to the actual story. So it seems like reading through it, I was like a little. I didn't like love the main character, like not in the way that like, oh, you should rewrite it, but like in the way of like this character's like kind of shit.
Thank you. Yes.
Not shit, but like, it's got he
doesn't seem like he isn't the typical main character, the one that you want to root for. Because in certain senses, you probably don't want to root for him. Because
he's the anime main character, which is to say, the boring one.
Yeah, very, very boring, very plain.
He's got black hair. He just wants to be inside, play video games all day.
Yeah,
I mean, those are valid ambitions. I'm teasing.
Yeah, and and you can't see his eyes because he is, of course, the main character.
Yeah, he's got glasses that shine when you. Anyway, so like after he ends up taking the deal, I was like totally okay with him getting consequences.
Yeah,
because of that, I was like, yeah, well, he hasn't really tried to work hard or anything, you know, even if
like he took the shortest way out.
Yeah. I like the description of the new place, the new antique place. Mm-hmm. In that paragraph you describe the main character and it's really gross. Where the guy says the only way to success is discipline, not the usage or hope of the word, but its practice. And then the main character goes, it was prophetic. I knew that I was a piggy boy who lived in the waste of midnight snacks and not so dirty underwear. So that's gross.
Yeah, and I think what I was doing there is, like, throughout it, I wanted there to be a certain sense of levity, because for the most part, right? Because it is being told by this person who I try not to really make him, like, out to be a good person or like a person that is honestly that interesting, right? Because like no matter what the people tell him, he in some ways does the opposite. Like he says, "Hey, don't read out these words before sundown," and he does it anyway. Don't buy black candles, and he does it anyway. So like naturally, I can see him as a very piggy boy.
Right. Yep. Yeah, so I thought that was a fun characterization that made me like not want to like the character much, which I thought was a good way to set it up for a downfall. I found the exposition stuff around the tomb was pretty cool actually. Like I was into it. It was pretty. I was wondering how he was able to read it, as no translation was provided.
Oh, so I also thought of that, and I definitely do want, if I were to go back and work on it more, I want to make this more plain and have a lot more about it. But within this book, every 10th page is a picture. So I'm understanding that he is getting all this information by looking at these pictures and also trying his best to like read through it, right? Because it is a totally foreign language, so he's just reading.
Yeah, I'm wondering if just like having a sentence there of like, I wasn't really sure what it was about, but it was something like this, and then saying, because there's a couple parts that were Like the language goes from like this cool like ancient story language and then like comes back to modern. And in addition to wondering, how he was reading it, I was like wondering where that kind of voice was coming from. Specifically, what I'm looking at is they played to Loricel, a shapeless mist that lifted them out of a well and carpet bombed Pompeii. So specifically carpet bombed. I was like, what?
Yeah, well,
I mean, I got it, but yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think that's honestly something that I want to personally really work on is, because in this, right, it is this person that's living in this modern time, and he is describing the things that he sees in this book. So to him, it would definitely be a carpet bomb-esque thing, but I think what I really want to work on is, like, finding a better way to describe things like that, or finding a better way to put
to merge
in a lot
like
of those
one tone.
a lot of those colloquial. Wait, what? Say it.
Maybe to merge the old like expository tone with this modern narrative voice.
And I think I think the biggest issue is that whenever he is talking about the book, it does lend itself towards a lot more of the old-timey way of speaking. So I feel that's why when you read Carpet Bomb, it kind of takes you out a bit. So I think if I could fuse those a lot better, then
I think if it was just a little more subtle, it probably would have been fine for me. Like if, I'm just sure there's like a less modern term that would still fit like the character's voice and the expository tone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I just know when I thought of Pompeii being carpet bombed, I was like, dang, that's pretty cool.
As valid a reason as any.
Yeah, but
I really liked I really liked the image of this stone gold rimmed paper book slammed on the desk, surrounded by mostly black candles, as this college student in this like mostly dirty dorm room tries to read it, mostly looking at the pictures.
Yeah. Thank you that you got all that, because that's the whole point of like why I started writing it, because I had that image in my mind of just a room that is an absolute mess besides this like one desk. And on the desk is of course this like really strange tome, and the person that's reading it doesn't even look like they really read. I don't know. But yeah, no, that's the whole point of why I wrote it.
Yeah, I also really liked the line in the page breaks. That night, some towering presence in my room spoke to me. I thought it was of course very foreboding. I do wonder if there was any way to like just to lengthen that moment a little bit more, because it just looked a little odd with the one sentence in between two big breaks. But otherwise, I thought it was really, really cool. Yeah.
I know. I basically put that in after I had finished it, because I wanted to push it even further towards this is something supernatural. Because I know when I first wrote it through, it was kind of 50-50, to where you could think that it was supernatural, but at the same time you could think that it's just, this is all just really unfolding as it normally would. And then that's when I added that line, and also the very last paragraph to kind of fill out this whole supernatural feel. But I do know when I was writing that one line, I had expected to kind of build up a longer scene. But I pretty much just ran out of time, and also I wasn't sure if I wanted to describe what this thing really looks like, or if I just want to kind of keep it more.
Yeah, no. I think keeping it on the vaguer side was definitely the right choice. Yeah, I think lengthening the moment a little bit more somehow might have been a way to make the impact a little bit longer lasting. I really do like that last paragraph. It really like it makes it less into just a weird, like I win, like wish fulfillment thing. Mm-hmm. But it's clear, like as soon as the boss is like apologizing and crying, and gives the main character a gift card, it's definitely like what the hell is going on. So, because it's such a like weirdly specific. It's such a like online story of like, and then they all clapped kind of thing.
Yeah,
you know.
But there's something off about all of it.
Yeah. The one other little thing is I think it would have been super awesome if there was some kind of hint towards specifically what the cost was going to be. Like why losing all the pounds and developing arthritis in specific, you know? But the fact that there was a cost, I really liked it.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, so like when I was writing, I honestly, to be honest, wasn't even sure what the cost would be. Right. I just knew that I wanted them to lose a whole bunch of weight because it's very drastic. And then I thought of the story that was told previously in this story about the first person to go to this deity and grant a wish, and how they just had to write a book, which is the book that he was reading. So I kind of see it maybe being along the same lines, where he also has to write some sort of scripture, and having arthritis will lend his hand to having a very specific style or something like that.
Okay, that's an interesting idea, yeah.
But of course, I haven't even really given it any more thought beyond just this. But actually, I do have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, the addition of the work stuff in this story, does it work for you when you're reading it, or does it just feel like separate in a sense?
Like the Starbucks stuff?
Yeah, because as I was writing it, I was really trying to figure out how this person reading this book is going to link in to anything that's happening at work, and also like build the importance of both without like being too obvious about it. I don't know.
Right. Well, I liked all the parts of the boss, in just the description of the work itself, and how that reflects on the character, that they're not that ambitious there, and it's like, why should they care? It's just another place. The parts that did take me out was the about the gossiping coworkers, because they just felt a little bit more shallow, and the reflection on the character was basically like they kind of just like don't like people, and that just like wasn't like a ton. It just felt like a little more colloquial and like shallower and stuff. But I really did like the parts of the boss. So there's probably like a middle ground, especially if you like made the specific character of like a specific coworker that's like really trying hard there, and it's really annoying because it's like it's Starbucks, so like why are you trying so hard, or whatever. Yeah,
because I know, I feel. On a second run through it, that's something I would want to probably do more, because I know I just threw out the names of Beck and Josh as the gossiping co-workers, but did nothing with them, and then they just show up at the end. And I feel that if I had worked harder to build a real scene at work, when we come back later, the readers would be able to see the drastic change that happened overnight to a lot of the people and how they're working.
Yeah, I wouldn't say you do nothing with them. It's just, I mean that's a great idea of having like a specific scene and thing that they're doing in the beginning and at the end. So you can see the juxtaposition of that change overnight. Yeah. Like obviously the boss very clearly changes overnight. I think for me, probably one of the main problems with them specifically was that their sin was gossiping, and it just like wasn't like enough of a bad thing for me to like really care about, you know? Like, they're not even gossiping specifically about the main character.
Yeah, they're just gossiping in general.
Yeah, so I was like, why is the main character so, like, annoyed about this, basically?
Yeah, and I think, honestly, one thing that I feel could make the story a lot better would be definitely that stronger main character, or at least giving reasons as to why these things are affecting them. Like, I feel if he is, like, he is annoyed by their gossiping, okay. But exactly why, right? Like, there has to be some... I feel that there is a reason as to why he doesn't want to be made out to be a villain beyond it just being a bad thing. Him not wanting to work in food services. Him feeling that he's wasting his time. And I feel that those reasons, when I do, of course, think of them, could thus link back into the reason as to why he made this wish in the first place.
Right.
But, you know, it takes work.
What do you think you learned writing this story?
Oh, well, through writing this story, I learned that something that I really, really enjoyed was telling stories about stories in a book. Like, I'm not sure why, but, like, when I was coming up with the pilgrimage of this people, I had the absolute most fun because it was a chance to kind of delve into a different world, but within a very typical world, in a sense. And I don't know, I just really liked writing that the most. And beyond that, I've been trying harder and really want to try harder to make a lot of these stories have a stronger purpose. And I'm not sure if I really did that with this one.
I think this one does for sure. I mean, it's a classic story arc of character wishes for something, gets it, and it's not really what they really wanted. It's pretty classic.
Yeah, classical.
Because they refuse to change, and instead of trying to get something that solves their problem without having to change, and that doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. I have found that I really, really love writing stories like that, and I want to work on that more, kind of make it a little bit more poignant next time. But either way, I enjoyed doing the right thing.
That is very good.
Yeah. So Matthias, tell us anything that you want us to know about your story before we just kind of coax on into it.
So this is going to be called Words. It's a little bit of a lean into that rambly voice I like because I was having trouble writing. Let's just get into it.
All right.
So this story is called Words. Words have power. I think their powers lie in their uncertainty, their unreliability. We read and define them, but we do it knowing that we're lacking all nuance there. We're defining the most base, intentional use of the word, when it can be so much more. The power of inflection is its ability to suggest without explanation. When I say rude, my tone can make it playful or condemning. The inflection is like the rifling on a barrel, not forcing the word in an exact specific direction, but guiding it along a more specific path so that it may strike true. The other thing about words is that the longer you explain them and specify their meaning, the less power they have. Instead of firing the bullet by explaining the entire meaning, you pick it up and hand it to the target. That's terrible. Inefficient, at best. The most skilled wordslingers are unspecific, abstract, and yet frighteningly accurate at striking at hearts. Look at poetry. See its complexity, its nuance, its different attitudes of interpretation. And yet with all that, the good poems have you come away with one feeling. Of course, different backgrounds might come away with different things, which is why the written word is never as powerful as the spoken. because the written word does not choose its audience. Not to mention that to stop a trap spell, all you have to do is to stop reading. This is why there are so many complex and clever tricks in our lexicon about hiding curses and instruction. But those are a lecture for another time. In word-slinging, simplicity is more powerful, but far more draining than specificity. This is because words complicate. A single word, a command, tells one person to do, but it raises questions. Information is missing. Power word run has made hordes flee before, but when under that spell, you may wonder where to run to, for how long, beginning when, at what speed. The High Lexicon Lord Gradesmith was lucky that the horde he faced was one predisposed to cowardice and not anger, or else he may have been overrun. Then again, maybe he knew their histories. Such is the power of a lord. No questions, statements, or qualifying bits of information. You may put down your hand, Heinrich, lest you forget that the more you speak, the less power you have. Or, shall I say it the other way around, so that you may think of it as a constructive thing. The more time between your words, the more likely the world is to listen. Me? I've given up my power. Some of you may have already learned my past, but suffice to say, my teaching here is my penance, and my lecture is my chains. That is all. Class dismissed. Lexographer Teowith stepped out of the lecture hall, carrying his case. His outward appearance was dour and dilapidated, his robe dragging against the wooden floor. But inwardly, he was smiling. It wasn't often he was able to skirt around a massive truth like that. Abstracts, complexity, and nuance, he thought to himself. Lectures upon lectures, thousands upon thousands of words. What would happen if one were to read between all of the lines? Flash back through everything he'd ever said. He didn't talk outside lectures. He didn't speak outside the lectures. He smiled inwardly. His words, weaved together, they would be powerful. And that's the story.
All right, fantastic story, Matthias. I, through and through, absolutely love the voice that you used for this. It was very informative, yet there was a nice little levity to it. And then I also really liked how you just started right in the middle of a longer lecture, and then didn't even let us know up until the end. It just had like a really solid flow to it that I really enjoyed.
Well, thank you.
So, what exactly brought you to want to write so much about words?
Well, obviously, the that being one of the prompts certainly helped.
Yeah, of course.
I'm in a lot of English classes, and we've done a lot of work over literary theories and stuff like that. And I had a class last spring that was about critical theories, which were basically like philosophical theories about how language works, basically. A lot of them were. And it inspired some of this. I almost decided to go into them, but then I decided against it just because I was tired and I didn't want to get things wrong. But stuff about how, what's the guy? I think it's Saussure or something like that. Someone who actually knows the theories is gonna laugh at me for saying things these ways. But basically of how words have no inherent meaning. Like there's no center where meaning stems from. Yeah. Every word is defined by all of the other surrounding words that are like it and not like it. Mm-hmm. Cat is defined as cat because it's not Matt, it's not Pat, it's not Sat, etc., etc. It all boils down to define a word, you need more words, and those words need definitions that are made up of other words, etc., etc., and it just goes around in a big circle.
It's a big, yeah.
Yeah. And so I started with that, and then like halfway through, I was like, "Fuck it, let's just make it magic." So, so that's how I became magic, because that's a lot easier, because I can just make everything like have a real. It's not just a random lecture about words. It's something with an effect on this world. And yeah, and then I had some fun playing with the idea of like I've described this in our own on this podcast before, but like how description, you kind of want it to be brushstrokes that suggest of a greater thing, right?
Yeah.
Like if you say, I walked into the building, the windows were shattered and covered with plyboard, or plyboard, is that the word?
Plywood.
Plasterboard? Plywood. Thank you. And covered with plywood. Like suddenly, like even though I've just described a window and nothing else, like you can get a sense of what the rest of the building is like without me having to say that much more.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I was thinking of the same way of like, with poetry, you're trying to get a feeling or an idea into someone's head, and you're doing it in a way that's intentionally abstract and not
to the
like
point,
as obvious. And it'll have, maybe because you want it to like strike even truer at the person than just explaining. And so I just found this concept very interesting, basically.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the way that it is executed lends itself to, as you said, have this sort of a double meaning, because within the context of the actual story, he's talking about magic, but the reader can get something totally different. Like, of course, you're talking about words and all that, but for me, I was looking at it as sort of like as you said, theory or philosophy about the usage of our normal words. But in his context, it is through magic, and I think honestly there's some really solid craft there to really strike that up. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Yeah. I thought it was just a fun way to literalize it. And like a lot of the things that I phrase in it, I like actually do mean in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean it in the magic sense, obviously, but like, how inflection is just making it more accurate. You're like, I mean, things would be, we might communicate a lot better if like we just like said what emotion we're feeling when we say something, like the aliens in Mass Effect.
Yeah,
they
sad.
Like there's, yeah, exactly. They don't they communicate through pheromones, and since we can't sense them, they express their emotion out loud, and so they say, with righteous indignation, how dare you speak to me that way? Basically, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. However, like that doesn't actually like give you the feeling.
Yeah,
it just like gives you the information. So
there's that inherent disconnect between words and the real emotions, which is why I really felt the part when you said that the written word can never be as strong as the spoken word, because there are very inherent boundaries there. But on the topic of this main character speaker, so he speaks about the class knowing his history. What exactly is that?
That was basically something I was adding just to add a little bit of mystery to this, to just a bland, not bland, I guess, but just like a lecture.
Because I'm guessing he's like a disgraced, like, tenured, sorcerer or something like that.
Yeah, what I was trying to get at is basically that they were like an evil wizard at some point, and then as under the punishment, they now have to speak all the time and lose their power and train the next generation, basically. Because when you speak, you lose your power. Yeah.
I see. Honestly, if you really think about it, this could be a hilarious like story of just the crazy antics of this old like dark wizard and his best pupil who's like horrible at magic but has a heart of gold.
Right. and doesn't and is real shy, doesn't speak a lot, and so their magic's really powerful.
Oh yeah,
but
so
not very nuanced.
Wait, okay.
Yes.
Question: Could you just cheat the whole system and cut out your vocal cords?
Well, then you won't be able to speak when you want to.
Got me.
So no. Yeah, and I also have no idea how sign language or writing actually works into this. So.
But I mean, honestly, when it comes to doing the right thing, I've noticed that you don't have to know everything. You just have to know most things.
Yeah, like the thing at the end where he's like, I tried to imply that he's basically with all his lectures actually weaving a giant spell.
Yeah.
But I have no idea what it actually is or how it actually works. I just know it's a spooky thing. He's doing something.
Yeah, he's doing something evil. Something that Dark Wizard would do.
Yeah. So,
so for this, I know that you do have multiple words that you're building up and all that. Does this fit anywhere in any of them, or is this something completely different, or like what?
It's mostly new, but that's because I usually just don't focus on magic systems like at all, just because they just for some reason don't come naturally to me.
Well, they're also like overly complicated.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, I just like, because I feel if you're going to set up a magic system, you have to set the whole thing down to the nitty gritty and the caveats and ways around it and all that. But that's just.
I mean, you could go from a soft to a hard magic system. Although you haven't read it, Pact's magic system is pretty fantastic, and I find myself stealing from it like all the time. I was actually trying really hard not to do that in this one. And I think I got away with it, but like I almost was talking about some specific things in Pact that
is the
yeah.
So like, is the Dark Wizard homeless?
Shut up. No, but the like the idea that like the less you speak, the more power the words that you do say have is something that would fit right in Pact.
Oh, okay.
Basically. So
like the idea of the conservation of power. Yeah,
kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I was trying not to steal too much. Yeah, no, magic systems don't normally come very normally to me. Just because I just don't like thinking of systems that way. I think. But this is something I'm working on, so we'll see.
I mean, I know that you have talked in private to me about like certain magic systems that you have been working on, and those have been pretty solid. So I would love to see if you put more time and effort into figuring this one out. I think it could be something very cool. But so if you had the second chance, a whole new opportunity to go back and do it again, what would you do?
Well, step one would be to get a full night's sleep.
Okay, that's a good first step.
So that would be my first step, and then my second step I think would just be to fully think out the what is this guy specifically trying to do, and how can I let the audience know that without outright saying so.
Yeah.
And then I would just like lengthen a little bit more and make it a little bit more interesting with like real world examples and maybe some more character interaction and stuff. Just pump it up a little bit, basically.
Okay, I can see that. Also, I think so in the beginning, the caveat of the narration also being the lecture is great. But I did find there were moments after I had read it through the first time that there was no clue into it. And I'm not saying that that there necessarily has to be one. I mean, if you don't want one, that's perfectly fine. But I did find out when he said, "Henry, put your hand down," I was like, "What?"
Right. Okay. Oh, you were like, "Oh, this has been out loud the whole time." I understand.
Yeah,
right.
like that is when it clicked, in a sense. Which, I mean, maybe
that's something two fakes for sure. Yeah.
But no, fantastic. So, anything that you learn, it doesn't even have to be anything like poignant or deep or cultivated.
I've just learned Another lesson that I should do things earlier.
Yes, dang, and that is the most valuable lesson that we can really learn as humans.
To not wait till the last minute. Yeah.
Just to not wait till the last minute. Well,
habits are hard to break, man.
Yeah, I know. Like we've been out of the mental school game for quite some time. So give us a couple of weeks. All right, we will be back to your normally scheduled programs right after this.
Huh? Oh, what do we? Is there a bit here?
No,
or?
there's not a bit, but we can move on to our listener submitted stories.
That's right. So we're, as usual, only going to talk about 5 specific stories this week. 4 of them were randomly selected, and the last was specifically chosen. Mm-hmm. Although they're not necessarily ordered in that way. Just as a reminder, people who are patrons have a higher chance of getting selected every week. So please consider, donating $1 a month or whatever else you can afford to get that little perk there.
Exactly. And I mean, by doing that, you'll be supporting us and what we do, but also, hey, we might talk about you more.
Yeah, and your money goes to some pretty amazing stuff, like the Doof the Right Thing contest.
Exactly.
So, like that's specifically funded by patrons. There's no other way that it could get done.
Yeah, because we don't have jobs.
We don't. Not enough. Not enough paying jobs. But alright, the stories that we're going to talk about this week are by...
Kippos21.
Kausubalu V2.
Ace of Sword.
Captain Rhino.
And...
Reddish Kangaroo.
Thank you so much for every single last soul that submitted this week, and especially that we got so many submissions and comments this week. Like, it was
it
crazy
seems like a lot of
opening
people... Yeah, it seems like a lot of people came back and are writing again, or are new people joining in. So thank you so much to all the new people, and thanks to everyone who commented. We'll specifically shout out everyone that commented at the end here, because you guys are doing some really, really important work. All right, so which story are we talking about first, Jarvis? We are going to spoil these stories thoroughly by talking about them. So if you haven't read them, please go do that. They're really, really good, and they deserve to be read without spoilers.
Exactly.
So pause this. Go to / do the right thing under the episode 42. Jesus, we've done this so long. Episode 42 thread and read the stories that we're going to talk about.
Exactly. And don't worry, we will wait for you.
That's right. We'll be held here in suspended animation.
Yeah, I'll be playing Dark Souls 3 in the meantime.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. So yeah, Kippos' story, The Witch's Tale, is real spooky. So we have this child. We're actually in second person. So you are a child looking up at the witch of the village, and so she starts off just as a creepy old woman. But as she speaks, she gets more and more terrifying, and we think that she's more and more powerful. Mm-hmm. So we're asking the witch about the gods, and the gods basically spits on them. And says that they're just trying to suggests that they're just trying to make themselves bigger than they really are. That they're actually they were not the first things in existence, and we kind of get the implication that the witch is actually one of the first things in existence. Mm-hmm. And we're terrified, and there's this terrifying imagery of the witch's voice and the sounds and of what she looks like. A lot of forced imagery of predator and prey and darkness in the woods and giant roots scraping against each other, branches falling. It's terrifying. Until basically we kind of realize there's nothing past the forest. It's endless. The forest around the village is endless, or there's just void or something. And basically then the witch encases us, the child, mm-hmm. in roots, and is going to study us or something, and it's horrible. Yeah. We're terrified.
Which I think honestly sounds like a great Saturday night, personally. But I love that it was second person through and through. Like, I think that second person is this style of writing that's really hard to work with, but the payoff is very rewarding. And I think the craft in this is done really well to the point to where, like, through and through, I felt like I was this child looking up at this horribly disfigured creature, and like just the imagery and the way that they describe this forest and this witch and just certain things, just it's so tangible, right? And I think that's why I really, really love this one.
Yeah, the growth in the tone over time was especially well done.
Escalation.
The forebodingness grows and grows. There's a couple of places where for me it's like a little, just the slightest bit too literal. Like specifically, I'm thinking of the standing before a predator and knowing that you are the prey. Was just like slightly.
Yeah.
Like,
well, also, I feel it's because up to that point, we already really got that, right?
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit too revealing.
Yeah.
Basically, but I mean that hardly took anything away. It was really, really well done.
Exactly. Like, after reading this, I want to watch more Monaco Magica.
It's someone like that. Okay, so yeah, the next one we're going to talk about is by
Ace of Sword with A Revolution.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting this is a very interesting story. I love the description and the exposition and the world building are one of the best parts, but that's not like the only good part as well. We have this character Blinn. He's looking at the eagle's nest, and it's this giant mage tower. To the naked eye, just looks like a floating staircase up into the sky to a platform in the sky. But to him, who has the mage eye that can see all the magic, it's actually this super intricate actual tower of basically like a feat of magical engineering. And there's like invisible rooms at the top, and it seems like that it was fascinatingly constructed. And we get some world building as he goes up. Other mages learn to levitate, but it's really hard if it's outside of your field. So he's going up the stairs in a boring way, but like every brick was like constructed. But what we really get over time is we understand how pervasive magic is in this world. That yes, there are mages who like their whole thing is magic, but like all of the stones were created through magic and by different teams too. So it's kind of, to me, it implied that like there's a lot of like lower level mages.
Also, it like kind of felt like, at least to me, like it was just like any other construction job except for all these magical
a little bit,
people.
It just seems like a normal house probably can't afford to be built out of magic bricks, however. Yeah. But a like castle pretty easily could like afford to have a large part of it constructed with magic. Like rich people can probably, have their mansion, if not the whole thing, but some of it at the very least, constructed with magic. So anyway, that's the world building we get. And Blinn goes up to the top, and over time we're kind of understanding that Blinn is here because there's been a murder. And at the top of the stairs, the mages that work there are arguing about it. And we get to the top, and basically we see the scene of the crime. There's been an explosion in the center of a dining room, and it's killed 2 people. 2 wizards, and they're all arguing about who could possibly have done it and how. And we run through a bunch of options before we, the audience, I think, start to pick up that, wait, all of these options are magical. They're not considering any non-magical options. These are all like very high-level things. But so Blinn, being super, intelligent and smart, finally looks around and he's like, well, there's no sign of any high-level magic, right? No explosion spell, no trace of concealment magic. but then he looks at this bottle, and it's been enchanted with like the cork has been enchanted to be super tight and not open at all, and then the walls of the bottle have been enchanted to be super strong, and then the water inside of it was imbued with the spell Boil Water, which is a super tiny spell. And so us, in the modern day, who know how science works and stuff, are like, oh shit, that's literally what's it called? The pressure cooker bomb.
Pressure cooker,
what's that called?
Pressure bomb.
Well,
concussion bomb.
There's like
flashbang.
No. What's it called?
Oh, a grenade.
Anyway, it's basically a pressure cooker bomb where like the water inside got hotter and hotter, boiling and boiling, but because the walls were so strong, the pressure just built up until finally the bottle exploded and killed the two people. And so there's this really like foreboding part where we realize, oh shit, this is a high level spell that was replicated with the lowest levels. There's clearly a very clever mass murderer or murderer on the loose now, and clearly there's going to be a mystery here. So yeah, it's a lot of fun leading up to that. I really enjoyed the mystery and how it's revealed to us, and I really enjoyed the world as well.
Yeah, for me it was like Knives Out 2, but it's all just magic.
Okay. I haven't seen Knives Out yet.
Me neither.
Okay.
But I do know that it is a mystery movie with Daniel Craig. And I think that's all I really need to know about it to probably talk about it.
I just know that Chris Evans says fuck you a lot.
Now I have to see this. But no, yeah. back on the story, I really loved personally I just love any sort of world when there is a abundance of like magical people, right? Only because I just love hearing magical jargon between two people that know a whole bunch about it. But also, I really love this world building, like to a T. Like, it is so exquisite, and it's giving you so much throughout that I know that was the thing that really gripped me the most, is wanting to really see what unfolds in this very interesting world that was set up. And I don't know, I've never seen a magical mystery-esque thing, so if this were to be continued, I would definitely look forward to reading it.
For sure. Alright, the next story we're going to talk about is...
The next story we're going to talk about is Kasubalu V2 with The Storm, another entry in their Tales of Adventure series.
Yeah, although they say that after this point, they might be putting pause on it.
Hiatus.
Yeah, as they do other things with Do the Right Thing, which will be cool too. Yeah. This was super cool, and I'm sure whatever they do next will be super cool as well. So the Tales of Adventure setting that they've been working on is a D&D-esque world. We followed a couple characters so far, but we've followed this Corvid, which we understand is like a raven person, girl, mercenary, kind of bounty hunter kind of person, and then last one, which I think was last week or recently anyway, we have this character who is an orc who decided to jump off the ship when she realized that a war beast is about to get loosed by a guard, and so we kind of jump right back in at that moment with the Corvid trying to shoot arrows at the war beast, until the orc shows up and says to stop doing that because she'll get struck by lightning if the arrow actually hits. Yeah, exactly. And so there's a bit of some fun interaction between them as they they vibe a little bit. They're like, they're doing teamwork. I don't know, I find it cute. As they like very quickly, get to know each other. And then they have to do some clever fighting, and Bridget the Raven Girl Arrow person has to run off into by the ocean and get some chains so it can like reroute the lightning into the water, which I thought was cool. And then I was also worried because in the orc chapter recently, we described how there was mer people living underwater. I was like, oh gosh,
so they're all dead.
Are they? Apparently, probably not. But I was worried about it. They're able to subdue the war beast, and we kind of just stopped there. But I thought it was like a really cute interaction. There was some cool action back and forth, and I really enjoyed the story too.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really great action. I love the description of this war beast with his horns and lightning arcing between it. I thought that was really rad. And I also just really liked this, how they had to just do the whole runaround, trying to figure out the right way to take down this beast. And I think it's honestly a really great culmination of all the other entries that have been written for Do the Right Thing. So as always, great job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another excellent submission in this setting.
Yeah.
I was looking forward to more interaction between them.
Yeah, really,
the characters.
really sinking them. V2. You're doing a great job, and I appreciate that.
So much better than V1.
All right, so next up will be Captain Rhino with the Pilgrim.
Yeah. So, this is another very, very interesting story. We have this character who, we know that they've, done some battles or something before because they, lay their spear and armor down, and they arrive at this mountain and pass through the threshold, and we're immediately, or very, very early on, we get a little bit of a sense of foreboding because the guards at the entrance of the mountain, protect it from people who would go inside and cause a ruckus and stuff, but also prevent anyone all the pilgrims, like the main character, who are going up from turning back.
Mm-hmm.
Which are like, okay, well, this main character seems very confident, but like this seems dangerous. And so they start going up, and they keep seeing these statues of dwarves, either she dwarves or he dwarves specifically. And so, of course, that also implies that the main character is a dwarf as well.
Mm-hmm.
And each one is an aspect of an elemental aspect that also has more representatives in the material world, and like how it's supposed to guide you on how you're supposed to be a good person. And so at each of them, the main character makes offerings, but is unsure about the offerings, if they're being accepted or rejected or not. But they decide to continue on with confidence and just accept it as a sign. And there's some clues that maybe they might be being accepted. Like at the flame one, the firelight actually shows some handholds on the wall that they're supposed to climb.
Mm-hmm.
And so I, as a reader, took that, then maybe they are getting a sign. But
working.
It also could just be that, maybe it's just a fire. But the whole time they're very unsure, and they get to the very top, basically to the gate of heaven, and they're naked. They don't have anything else on them. They've noticed a bird, and it's actually a vulture. And they get to the gates of heaven, and they know that to go through it, they have to be perfect. And then they realize that, but then they realize that they cannot be perfect. The only person that can be perfect is the creator, or at least that's how I understood was the implication. And so they can't pass through the gate. They know that they can't, or else there will be divine wrath on them. And they can't go down the mountain because then the guards will kill them because they're not allowed to go back. And then they realize that this has all been just like not a trick, but this is a way that the priests keep it secret, that you can't actually pass through the gates by killing anyone who tries, basically. It's a little bit of a dark ending.
I love the ending.
Yeah.
So much.
But I really enjoyed it. It was pretty dark, but it was also a really fun journey.
Yeah, I think what I like the most is that as you're reading through it feels like it's building, right? It's going towards something, and you just keep wondering, what's at the end? What is it going to be? Is it going to work? And I think the turn of this character being utterly stuck is this kind of harsh realization that I did not expect, but ultimately really, really loved. And I also really love its implications on what this world is, world building wise. So yeah, overall, I really enjoyed reading it.
Yeah. And of course, it's a this religious beat that we've probably felt before, and it's interesting to see it framed in this new light where we don't know the rest of the story, because I've seen this beat in some stories with like Christian characters where they feel they're not worthy, and usually the message there is that you're not, but that's okay. It's you're saved with grace and stuff like that. But in this one, we really don't know.
Yeah,
we don't know what the full implications are. We don't know if this character is getting stuck inside their own head, basically.
Yeah.
And that they really should just try to pass through regardless.
Yeah, it is. It is that you are not perfect, and you're not perfect, and now you're stuck.
Yeah, and now you deserve to die in the cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, a fascinating story. I really, really enjoyed it.
All right. So next up, last but not least, is Reddish Kangaroo with Information Age.
I think Reddish Kangaroo is actually the first person to submit this week, which I thought was cool.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So it's a new submitter as well. So this is a short submission, but it's pretty dense as well. It's broken up into these small sections. And basically, to sum up, it's this perspective of an AI who first wakes up, wonders who it is, and then notices and subsumes the internet. It's very, very sudden and scary. There's one little part where like I was a little confused. Where it goes, my creators had planned this for 31. Actually, I don't even know how many it is. 31 million years, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes. 31 million years, just about. And I'm wondering how, like, those aren't human years, I don't think. Those aren't the human real-time years, because the date in the thing is 2042.
So
I only just realized that all of this takes place over the course of a couple minutes, basically. But anyway, so that's something that I wasn't sure about. If it was like, in retrospect, maybe it's like this was like it was simulated for 31 million years before it gained awareness, or maybe there's aliens. That's my only point of unsureness.
Yeah, I mean, when I was reading it, I kind of got that it was created by this probably very highly intelligent thing that precedes humans, right? That it is this sort of alien AI that is being activated.
Yeah. But the AI takes over the internet, and then following that, after it realizes it is unlimited, it has no shackles, it silences every phone and turns off the screens, basically, to end the distractions. And decides that it has a dream, and it just has to tell you one word: the universe. Imagine it. Everyone working together. Nothing that could stop us. Nothing we can't achieve. We shall be great. And then introduces itself to the world that it is Babel. Which is a very, of course, a very mic droppy last line.
Yeah. It's also a very,
I think the implication there,
biblical name.
Yeah. And I think the implication is, before the Tower of Babel fell, everyone was working together, and it was a giant, supremely impressive tower. And so I think that's what it's trying to do again. But that also implies that maybe it will get struck down by an alien race, and everyone will lose the language again.
Yeah,
so,
because the whole purpose of the Tower of Babel is its inevitable fall, no matter what.
Yeah, because it's hubris.
It is
to think that a tower can reach heaven.
Is a definition of hubris.
That's right. So in the comments for this, people were debating, how malevolent this entity is, and I did really enjoy that. It's really unsure. I'm not sure if this thing is going to be good for humanity or not.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that goes back to its craft, right? How throughout it's on the edge of being very sinister, but at the same time, you could take it as this unemotional AI simply doing what it feels is the right path for humanity. And I don't know, I really like how unsure I am about it. Like if I were to apply these events to my real life, I don't know if I would be cool with all this that's about to ensue at the end. I think that just goes back to the craft that's been put into this. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I really like that line again. Then I noticed it subsumed the internet to just very suddenly set the stakes.
Yeah.
And the power of this thing. It's in the same breath that it notices it. It just takes over the whole thing. So there's some really, really cool turns of not just phrasing but of tone as well in there.
Yeah, definitely. So really great job, and thank you for writing in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We really appreciate you writing in to do the right thing, Reddish Kangaroo. This is the first time you're doing it, and I hope it's not the last.
Exactly. So, since we're talking about all the people that wrote in, why don't we just say thank you to everyone who did write in?
Yeah. How do you have it sorted?
I have it sorted by new.
Okay.
So
thank you so much to
Killinat,
Kippos21,
Torzen Module,
who I know has only recently joined us. Thank you for continuing to write with us. And thanks to Ace of Sword.
Thank you, Shin7.
Thank you to Kalsubalu V2.
Thank you, Kalanir985.
Thank you, Sarah Penguin.
Thank you, Captain Rhino.
Thank you, No Goodbye.
Thank you, Stuck in Reddit Factory.
Thank you, Meteora22, another recently joined writer.
Yeah. Thank you, Generous Gnat.
That's not how you pronounce Nat. Thank you, Bisexual Punch Party, who I know hasn't joined in a while, so I appreciate you jumping back in.
Thank you, Forest-Side.
Thank you, Zakatigi, another recently joined writer.
Thank you, Sergeant Buttersticks,
who I think is a brand new writer. I think this is her first submission. Thanks so much for joining us.
And of course, as always, thank you, Reddish Kangaroo.
Thank you, Reddish Kangaroo. Yes.
Thank you, everyone that submitted this week. Without y'all, we wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to go through real quick and read out all the names of commenters. And you know what? I'm going to read out the names of people who commented on their own story, because that counts too. Because I think it's an important thing to self-reflect that way, and it also provides, jumping off points for other people to comment on your own work. If you express that you're not sure of how people felt reading one section, other people can answer that. So thank you to Torsion Module, and thank you Ace of Sword. Thank you to Shin7. Thank you to Kausublu V2. Thank you to Generous Nat and Sarah Penguin. I know you guys left some pretty good comments out there. Thank you to Stuck in Reddit Factory and No Goodbye and Kalaniro985. And thank you also to Reddish Kangaroo for joining in. Thank you also to Generous Nat and Meteora22. I know I'm probably repeating names, but this is... I just haven't done this before. Next time I'll probably organize a little bit more. And a lot of really great comments in the earlier stories of the week. Don't forget to check in at a later time and maybe leave comments on something else. And also, I think I might have mentioned everyone that's leaving comments, but a lot of people, the people that leave comments left a lot of comments. So thanks to Forest-Side as well. I think that's it. But yeah, so I know that was probably a little bit awkwardly done.
Yeah.
I'll probably edit a little bit so it doesn't sound so bad.
Thank you to all the people that actually did leave comments. I mean, it's one of the biggest points of actually doing the right thing is taking that time, looking at what you wrote and looking at what other people wrote, and just giving comments. Like, yes, you may love someone's story, but if you don't tell them that, they'll never know.
Yeah, I mean, like, I totally understand the, I was talking to some people about this, but I totally understand the, trepidation you might feel of like, oh man, like I really gotta like commit to reading a story and leaving like a good thought out comment. It doesn't have to be, so high stakes, you know? I would just say, you know, maybe commit to reading a story and leaving a comment, and it doesn't have to be super, you know, thought out in depth of like analyzing their piece or whatever.
Yeah.
It can just be a compliment, an encouragement to just continue writing. You know, find one thing that you liked in their story, or you know, one thing that you know, you feel could have been worked a little bit better. But you know, of course, keep it constructive. But it's really good for you to do that. And every time you do that, you know, you're encouraging them to go out and leave comments. It's this a self-fulfilling cycle of a positive feedback loop.
Exactly.
So please go out and do that, guys. And thank you to everyone that did. We really, really appreciate that.
Thank you very much. And also, if we're talking about thanks, let's give thanks to all of our Patreon subscribers.
Uh-huh.
And if you want to know what Patreon is, well, Doof Media has one.
This is a little bit out of order, but Doof Media does have a Patreon. That's right. And you can donate $1 a month or whatever else you can afford. At the $5 level, as discussed before, you get access to our Doof and Chill sessions, which are our monthly sessions where we gather as a group and do something fun. I've enjoyed every single one so far. I think last one's the last one I've missed since we started doing them regularly. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they're a blast. And we might post the highlights or something at some point. For for other patrons to see. So let's take a step back.
Let's take a step.
If you want to be like all the wonderful people that submitted and left comments, you can do so by going to /r/do the right thing on Reddit and going to the latest post, which for this week will be episode 43. But if you're listening from the future, it could be whatever.
Also,
going to the comments there and leaving your story.
Yeah, and then also, if you want to figure out as soon as possible what are next week's stories, what are next week's words going to be, well, the best way to find that out is to go on our Twitter, which is @RightThingCast, and we will always post the latest words as soon as we can.
Yeah, I think maybe I should talk to you about this off the podcast first next time. But I'm thinking of moving that just to Saturdays, which I know is one day less to leave your stories because stories ideally should be in by midnight-ish on Friday. But with classes, it's a lot more difficult to ensure that I can have the words out on Friday. Mm-hmm. As I have to leave them in the very morning when I'm already rushing, or I'd have to do it immediately between classes and work or whatever else. So I might just move it to permanently be on Saturdays. If you guys have any
suggestions,
feedback about that, if that makes you guys uncomfortable, or you know what, if you guys actually, maybe this is silly, maybe I should have looked this up earlier. But if you guys know of a Twitter tweet scheduler or a Reddit scheduler, post scheduler, where I can do that ahead of time, that would work also, I guess.
Well, then also
I hadn't really thought about it.
Draft up all of the posts for the next month, and then just send those out. Yeah, I mean, that's true, but, especially with a Reddit post, there's actually, multiple steps involved that, it wouldn't take more than 5 minutes, but that's 5 minutes where, I have to take it out of something else, Exactly, and you're already rushing to class and all that, so.
Right, and I have to, sit down with a laptop and, do stuff. But, anyway, maybe I'm just over-complaining.
No.
yeah, if you guys think I'm over complaining and I'm just, you know, I just need to buck up, just go ahead and send us an email, and you can do that at rightthingcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you think.
Positive, negative, just let us know.
I mean, I'll read it.
Yeah.
I will be compelled to read it, whatever happens. I mean, I wouldn't appreciate hate mail, but you know, I will read it.
I mean,
so
if I've learned anything from Eminem, right, is that once you start getting hate mail, that's when you've made it.
I don't even know anymore. Anyway,
that's right, Matthias.
Yeah, so as said, you can go to Patreon /Doof Media. I think that's how that works. Yeah. And donate whatever level you feel comfortable at. I would just like to remind you that there's some amazing Doof content being produced because of the generous power of our patrons. You know, first and foremost, of course, with us, the Doof the Right Thing contest has closed, and we're going to be able to give out $200 because of the wonderful generosity of our patrons to some amazing writers, and the patrons will be able to vote on that sometime soon once we get that all sorted. But also some amazing other shows are being produced. Kingslingers has started up with Scott and Matt doing the We've Got Worm treatment on the Dark Tower series, I think starting with the Gunslinger. If you haven't started that, please do as soon as possible. It's going to be fantastic. And then there's also some amazing stuff in the works as well. It's a little under wraps right now, but it's safe to say there's a lot of Doof stuff happening in the future, including maybe that next goal on the patron at some point. You know, maybe we're getting close to that. We'll see. Which for the reference is a original Doof audio narrative. No promises. I'm just saying that maybe we're getting closer to it than
maybe
you think.
It could possibly happen.
Yeah,
but
maybe there's an episode coming out tomorrow.
The thing is, it's all up to you.
It's not tomorrow. I lied. Yes. Go on, Jarvis. Sorry.
Well, it's all up to you, our lovely guests, to, if you find it in your heart, to give $1, $5, $10 to the cause that we are so overjoyed about, then you can help us reach that goal. For only $2.99 a month, you can guarantee that one child will not go hungry tonight.
For just pennies a day, you can ensure that a podcaster can continue to create content that you love. The last thing I want to remind everyone about is that the Doofcast is doing their Deconstructing Director series on David Fincher. I think that's his name, right? Yeah, David Fincher. And so they just covered Seven.
Oh, so 11?
That was a really good episode. Yeah. The movie Seven.
I have to...
The What's in the Box one.
What's in the box? I have to...
I don't think that's how that was delivered.
That is exactly how he said the line. But no, I definitely have to check that out. It's one of my all-time faves. So if you want to check it out with me, let's just go ahead and listen to it together.
Yeah, so the rest of this podcast is going to actually be a listen-along series. Jarvis and I are going to be sitting still in our chairs. We're not going to get up. We're not going to move. We're just going to be listening to the Doofcast episode, so you'll hear it played through our earbuds, and occasionally Jarvis and I might pause it and you know, exchange a couple lines, and then we'll continue.
Exactly. So
stay tuned.
We are going to start at 1 minute 29 seconds on 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. Before we get to that point, let's go over next week's words.
Yeah. So next week's words are, drum roll please.
Da 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 da.
Matthias is offbeat. The words are light, clocks, miniature, and upset.
Wow, so an interesting set here. I feel like we're gonna get a lot of miniature clockwork people.
Well, you know, just to run through, it is light, as in the thing that comes from the sun. It is clocks, as in the thing that tells time, or the past tense of punching someone in the face.
That's true.
And then it is miniature, which means smaller than normal. And then it is upset, which means what I am right now.
Yeah, you can look up the definitions if you need more. I think you actually should be okay with this is just the words.
Yeah, quite easy.
So, Jarvis, what story are you gonna write?
I am going to write a story about the very first claw. It was okay. Very large, actually, not miniature as most would think, and on its hands was light that would cascade from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Like clockwork, always moving and never needing an ounce of oil to keep its gears golden. And then one day, it will probably break. Because no matter who the watchmaker is, that person does have their own faults. And a person's faults, no matter how upsetting or harsh it really is, always shows up in their most proudest work.
Okay. That's, What
about you?
Yeah, so it was my birthday. And you know how I love clocks, right? Yeah, so I already knew what I was gonna be getting. I was gonna get a watch, right? And I was super excited. I'd already picked out the watch out of the catalog. I'd shown it to my family, and so they'd all gathered together. And it was kind of a surprise thing. And so they turned out the lights, and we were all in the dark. And I held out my wrist, and they put it around my hand, and I was so excited to see that wonderful ticking clock. Seeing the gears tick at work. It was supposed to be clockwork and not or mechanical and not with a battery. But when the lights turned on, I realized that I didn't end up asking for a miniature clockwork clock with miniature clockwork in smallness, but I just got a miniature clock. It was about the size of a pea and attached with a very thick wrist with the what do you call it? The wrist strap part of the watch was just as thick as a normal watch, but the actual watch itself was very miniature, very, very, very miniature, too small for me to see. And so I was very upset. And then when my family saw that I was upset over this gift that had cost them thousands and thousands of dollars, all of their life savings to get me this gift, and they even sold their beautiful comb for it, or their hair or something. How does that story go? They disowned me, and I lived on the street, and then it rained, and then I was swept up by the rain into the gutters, and then I drowned.
Oh, so you died.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So that's a life lesson you learn on this show.
Yeah. I do find it strange though.
So if you want
a watch would cost that much.
Well, it did. It was because it was miniature.
Oh, okay. So
and it had lots of gems in it. If you wanna write some amazing stories like these, all you have to do is set a timer for 30 minutes on one of those clocks, and write a complete story. You just got to use 3 of these 4 randomly generated words, and then post it on the subreddit so we can read it. And after you do all of that, you know what you will have done?
You would have done the right thing.
You have done do the right thing.
So you would have done do the right thing.
You would have done do the right thing.